Hi, I haven't done a video in a while, so I think it might be worth doing a few based on some of the things that are coming out recently. If you don't know me, I'm a personal trainer. I'm not a doctor. I've also got a level 3 nutrition diploma, hypnotherapist and NLP practitioner as well. So I've got a few bits going on. So I'm not going to give out any sort of medical advice. What I'm going to talk about is just some basic sort of facts and theories that I've stumbled across, my research and what I know. Firstly, what I want to talk about is something you might have noticed, particularly in the UK recently, prevalence of the diabetes prevention, the adverts with the hugs and the showing out the affliction of type 2 diabetes and what that can have, the problems that can cause for people. It's just a sec. Now, I've picked up one of these diabetes leaflets. Now, I've got to be careful I don't get sued, so I'm not going to sort of go into much detail on it. What I want to point out to people is that you've got to be just a bit cautious around the facts when you're looking at the facts here, because what you've got is a balancing act between conventional wisdom, dietary conventional wisdom, and also what's actually going on. So if you look at dietary conventional wisdom, in the late 60s, early 70s, they started telling us to eat less, do more, cut out fat content. Now, since that time, there's been a sharp rise in the consumption of carbohydrates, refined carbohydrates, food processing, which has sort of correlated to, not directly caused, obesity and diabetes worldwide. I mean, if you look at the numbers of the increases worldwide, that can't be argued. There are some people who claim to be fitness professionals, scientists out there who are trying to debunk this by saying it's not carbohydrate, it's general calorie intake. Primarily, I believe, for the purpose of trying to sell products, to try and be controversial or whatever. You've just got to look at the common sense. I mean, I'm not in ivory tower, I live in a pretty working class area. If you go out and look, most people are overweight or obese. Now, if you went and spoke to them, I don't think they would turn around to you and go, what did you eat today? Normally they wouldn't say, well, I had, eggs for breakfast with bacon and, onions and whatever, some sort of omelette type of thing. For lunch, I had a bit of steak with, loads of vegetables. And then for dinner, I had, mackerel with avocado salad. Normally what people will tell you from the dietary habits is that a bowl of cereal for breakfast, some sort of sandwich for lunch, and then maybe some sort of pasta or jacket potato type of arrangement in there. So people's diets are quite carbohydrate rich. Now, if you look in the research, particularly around what I'm going to talk about quickly, just diabetes, well, diabetes type 2 pretty much is called insulin resistance, where the cells become resistant to insulin. Again, we'll keep it simple, resistant to insulin. So normally when something becomes resistant to something, it means there's too much of something in the system. So if there's too much insulin in the system, the problem is the fact there's too much insulin in the system. And what drives insulin is glucose, so blood glucose levels, which is stated in this book. What's missing though from this leaflet is what the primary driver for elevated blood glucose levels are. You don't have to be a doctor or a scientist to know that elevated blood glucose levels are caused by elevated carbohydrate consumption, because the body has to clear out the glucose from the bloodstream first, and insulin plays its part in that by unlocking cells to let the glucose in, very simplistically speaking. So then, why on earth would the bulk of this booklet be focused around the consumption of carbohydrates, particularly things like the Eat Well plate? 1/3 of your diet should be carbohydrate rich in starchy carbohydrates. Now, why is that? You can say what you want. Primarily, that's driven by, the people who originally thought of these Eat Well things, which were the US Department of Agriculture, which job is to buy and sell and import grains. There's a lot of money in carbohydrate consumption and grain consumption. Hence, that's what would drive the need to consume more. Now, if you look at your diet, anybody else's diet who's maybe got diabetes, maybe got, they're overweight, they didn't get that way normally by over-consuming fatty foods. And when I say fatty foods, I don't mean processed fatty foods. I mean normal, natural fatty foods, fish, meat, eggs, even lard. These are foods that I eat, these are foods that people I work with eat, who've had tests and got excellent sort of profiling from a health perspective. So let's just give you one little excerpt from this. It's talking about the glycemic index. So the glycemic index basically is the rate in which your blood glucose is elevated by certain foods. So for example, if you have a teaspoon of sugar, that's about 80 odd on the glycemic load. A grapefruit's about 30. So that's the elevation of blood glucose. So the more the blood glucose levels spike, the more insulin has to be secreted to get rid of it. So it says here, for breakfast, try an oat-baked breakfast. So oat-based breakfast, i.e. porridge. Okay, but still carbohydrate. Add sliced fruit, carbohydrate, to whole grain breakfast cereals, carbohydrate. Now, if you go and get a whole grain breakfast cereal, there are certain cereals out there that claim to be whole grain, which have about 20 grams of sugar per serving. Again, that's going to elevate your blood glucose levels. Not very good advice. Add baked beans, sugar, to check your sugar content of baked beans, to a jacket potato, very high in the glycemic load, and serve with a large green salad. So the first two things they're recommending in there are going to elevate your blood glucose levels. Try a bean-based or vegetable soup, fine. Now, vegetable soup, you get a tinned vegetable soup. Again, there's about 18-19 grams of sugar per tin. Eat a variety of granary or pumpernickel bread instead of white or wholemeal bread. Get that, that's thereabouts. But again, a lot of breads, whether they're grainy or not, are still going to jack up your blood glucose, hence your insulin levels. So evening meal, considered boiled potato instead of sweet or mashed potato with your meal. Well, potato's potato, very high on the glycemic load, it's going to increase your blood glucose levels. Choose basmati or easy cooked rice instead of long grain rice. Okay, so if that's white rice, again, that's still going to elevate your blood glucose levels. Vegetables, fine. Include beans or lentils, fine, but still have carbohydrates in them. Get into the habit of eating fruit. Okay, I'll take that literally. I'll have 3 bananas a day. Very high on the glycemic load. Very high in glucose as well, so going to jack up your blood glucose levels. Low-fat yogurt, great. So I'm going to have one of those yogurts where they took the fat out and add the sugar in. Again, popcorn. So what type of popcorn? Sweet popcorn with added sugar. Again, going to elevate blood glucose levels. Plus it's corn and all the the pesticides and whatever else the corn's sprayed with. Go easy on lower GIs like chocolate and nuts. Which are high in fat and calories, especially if you're trying to lose weight. So they're telling you not to eat fat, but eat carbs when you're trying to reduce your glycemic load. Now, simplistically speaking, sugar, carbohydrate equals elevated glucose. So to reduce glucose, reduce carbohydrate. It's quite that simple, really, for most people. That's not restrict the amount of food you eat. That's that. Speak to your doctor if you need specific advice, of course. But when you're reading things like this, just be a bit curious about, well, hang on a minute, why are they telling me to eat more carbs when the issue is carbs in the first place, technically? So just be a bit curious on that when you're reading this general literature, because remember, conventional wisdom has brought us here. And this isn't good from a health point of view. So just be a bit suspicious and a bit curious when you do that. I'll give you some more updates soon. Cheers. Bye.